All right. Thank you for that. Okay. At this point in time, we're going to officially begin our Take Back Florida statewide tour for Escambia County. So I want to first start by saying good evening, Democrats. Good evening. We're going to try it again. Good evening, Democrats. Good evening. There we go. There we go. Before we get started, I would like to ask each of you to please participate in a brief moment of silence to honor the memory and legacy of a fighter, a jewel, and a beloved member of Northwest Florida community, as well as our Democratic family. If you have not yet heard, we lost last week Ms. Carol McIntosh. So I'm going to ask us to please participate in a moment of silence at this point in time. Thank you for that. All right. At this point, we all know that Ms. Carroll will truly be missed, and the work that we do here in this community and in Northwest Florida, we will continue to do it in her honor and all of those who have trailed the path before us. So we thank you for that. At this time, let me first start by introducing myself. For those that I do not have the pleasure of knowing, my name is Derek Scott, and I currently serve as the chair of the Escambia County Democratic Party. On behalf of our leadership team, and I wrote it out this time because if you've been in our meetings, you know I skip over people. So we're going to start. On behalf of our leadership team, as I call your name, please make sure you wave, stand, whatever you feel comfortable with. Starting with Lil Eubanks, our vice chair. Alma Woods, our secretary extraordinaire. Mr. Norm Kruger, our treasurer. Charlie Nichols, our parliamentarian. I don't believe I see him here today. Our state committee woman, Diane Crummell. Our state committee man, Brian Seatstein. And our steering team members, Ray Guillory, who is not able to be with us today, Ann Hill, Cindy Martin, Cassandra McAway, and Sandra McCreary. So on behalf of the leadership for Escambia County Democratic Party, I would like to officially welcome you to the Take Back Florida statewide tour with our esteemed and beloved chair, Nikki Fried. Today marks a very important day here in Escambia County, the day where we as Democrats decided to get off our butts and take back Escambia County and the rest of the state of Florida. After announcing $1 million investment in voter registration and vote by mail efforts, the Florida Democratic Party, led by Chair Nikki Fried, is poised to tremendously reduce the tenuous lead that Republicans have in the amount of registered voters by over 35%. Now, I want to be perfectly clear that here in Escambia County, we will not have a repeat of 2022, where more than 49% of our registered Democrats sat home and did not participate in the electoral process. Even in the wake of Senate Bill 90 and Senate Bill 7050, which were designed in process and in nature by Republicans to disenfranchise voters and suppress both our voice and our vote, we will continue to fight for our state, our county, our city, and everybody in our community who resides here. This statewide effort will take a coalition, not just of Democrats, but many groups, so that we can actually see the change that we so desperately need in 2024. So again, I'm going to thank you for participating at this time. I would like to ask one of the board members for the Ella Jordan African American History Museum, which is most of you all, I'm going to assume many of you guys have never been here before. This is your first time. So I'm going to invite to the stage Mr. Walter Gully to come and just share a little bit about the Ella Jordan African American History Museum and how we came to be today. Thank you.
Somebody said that it couldn't be done, but he would chuckle replied that maybe it couldn't, but he would be one who wouldn't say so until he tried. So he buckled in with a bit of a grin, took off his coat and went to it. He started to sing as he tackled a thing that couldn't be done, and he did it. Greetings and salutations. I am Walter Gully Jr., the proud president of the Ella L. Jordan African American History Museum. This home was originally built in 1890 by a gentleman by the name of Raymond Waters. It later was sold to a mulatto man around 1906. Miss Ella Jordan moved here from Alabama with her husband and began to embark upon a life of hard-nosed, refusing to take no for an answer, type politics, type community activism. And it occurred around the same time as all the other women were fighting around the country in the 1920s. You know, that's when the 19th Amendment was passed. Women got the right to vote. At that point, they became liberated. They began to speak out more, not sit idly by and take things on the chin, so to speak. And this home actually was laying dormant for about 10 years after 2004 Hurricane Ivan came through, severely damaged the roof, rained in here tremendously. The city wanted to tear it down, but two men said no. And that was the mayor, Ashton Hayward, and Mr. Lou Ray, who was the magistrate at the time. And this community came together, black, white, Jews, Gentile, whatever, Baptists. I mean, they came together and put their monies together and put their efforts behind the project. And we're so thankful for two men, Mr. David Delgado, who was the contractor, and Mr. Eddie Todd, who was the architect. So at this particular time, we are honored to be able to provide a service to the community. We are so honored that you chose this place to be. Now, one of the distinct things about this museum is you look on this wall, it's no accident that it's referred to as the Women of Distinction. This is one of the few museums in the country that's dedicated to African American women and what they did in their community. So if you're able to get close, you'll see some of the most successful women. You start up at the top with Miss Georgia Blackman, who recently died. She was a warrior. Miss and Miss Bevelyn Baines, who brought Miss Blackman on board, taught at Woodham High School for many years. And then, of course, in the center there's the apex, Miss Jordan. But look on this wall, you see the first black female judge in Pensacola. That would be Miss Joyce Williams. And then you had Miss Hattie Morris Funeral Home. You had Miss Sybil Dedman, who was the wife of Lawyer Dedman. She actually worked with Thurgood Marsh on the Brown versus Board case. Next to her is Rita Jones, who happens to be the sister of Sybil, who you know, Corrine Jones Center, same family. Okay. Then you have County Commissioner Miss Marie Young, just to name a few, and dynamic women of success, women of courage. And so tonight, I want to welcome you. Let me put this microphone on in case Miss Freed be a little hoarse, when you go around the country talking. You probably need a good hot microphone, you know. But yeah, take your time, walk around, take a look, enjoy the scenery. If you have any questions, I'll be here. I know a little bit, and I'll be happy to share what I know with you. So again, welcome, Miss Nikki Freed. Welcome to the Florida Democratic Conference. And I pray that your meeting goes well tonight. No, and thank you, Mr. Scott, for choosing this site.
Thank you, Mr. Gully. Now, I'm going to take a moment because I know Ms. Gully is, I don't know if she's here, but she may be watching. I don't want her to say that Mr. Gully missed her on the wall. So I'm going to point up there too. So thank you for that. In keeping with what Mr. Gully just mentioned to you all, on your chairs, and I'm just going to steal one from here for a moment, there are a couple of QR codes, and I'm going to start with the one that's in black right here. Mr. Gully mentioned a pioneer, one of the folks that we revered in this Escambia County, who we recently lost, Ms. Georgia Blackman. In her loss, the community is reeling, right? We don't know. We're going to try to move on and continue the work that she's doing. But here with the Escambia Democratic Party, we wanted to make sure that we honored that legacy and continue the fight. Now, one of the things that I want to make sure that the Escambia Democratic Party is not a party of folks that you see only during the election cycle. We are here as a proud partner of someone that you can depend upon, so we want to give back. And in this, one of our keepings of giving back, we have partnered with the Ella Jordan African American History Museum to create a scholarship fund called the Johnny and Georgia Blackman Memorial Scholarship Fund. It is going to be managed by the Ella Jordan African American Museum, but guess who's going to fund it? Democrats. So people let you know. So on this QR code, what we've set up is in a way that you, if you feel inclined to donate to this fund, all proceeds, not a portion of the proceeds, every dime, we set up a special account, every dime that you contribute, it will go to fund at this point in time, 2 scholarships to be awarded to deserving high school seniors as they graduate for the year 2024. So I'm going to ask, if you feel inclined at any point in time, please take your phone. I'm going to not assume that everybody knows how to use a QR code, so I'm going to give you a little lesson here. All you need to do is take your phone, open in your camera, whether you have an iPhone or you've gone wayward and made an Android. You take it and aim it at this black QR code. It should prompt you to open up a web browser, which will take you directly to an ActBlue link where you can donate any amount that you so choose. We ask that any of those, if you can, if you have it to give, please make sure you do so, because we want to honor her work by bringing up the next generation. So I'm going to ask you for that. The other QR code is, because we are Democrats and we still need to get people out to vote, is a QR code that takes you to a site. Now, for those unaware, at the end of 2022, anybody who was registered for vote by mail was automatically removed. So if you know someone who voted by mail or is expecting a vote by mail ballot, please make sure you get them re-registered. There are several ways to do so. You can call the Supervisor of Elections here in Escambia County at 595-3900, and they will be able to, it's just a 3-second, hey, I want to sign up for vote by mail. Or you can go to the blue QR code and same way, scan it with your phone and sign up. You can also use this QR code to register people for vote by mail. So again, we've got a lot of work to do. we're going to make sure that we're well equipped to do it and get the job done. So at this point in time, I'd like to just bring up, to say a few words, our beloved and esteemed chair of the Board of County Commissioners, Commissioner Lehman May, who represents the District 3 here in Escambia County. I'll turn it over to you.
And I like the instructions of our chair that says a few words when Nikki Fried is late. I mean, you're taking it away from Lehman May. I mean, what are you doing? Just for you. I mean, I came early for Nikki Fried and she came late. I mean, but that's what we do with Democrats. Let me say, welcome to my dear friend Nikki Fried. And Nikki and I have been on this a journey for a long time together, and we've had a lot of battles together and a lot of fights together. And Nikki, thank you for your service. And quite frankly, I just tell you, she's the hardest working lady in show business. We've spent some time together today with some donors, with some other Democrats that sometimes that don't get at the grassroots level. And I can just tell you, Nikki was very adamant about how important it is to go door to door, how important it is to be at the grassroots. And even these people, they write big checks, but sometimes they don't knock on a lot of doors. And Nikki, thank you today for standing strong. Well, absolutely, I'm excited, but I'm always excited, and I'm never more excited than to recognize my mother and my father, I mean, for my being. And so when I walked in and I saw my father here, and the great contribution that he made to this community, it gave chills to me. And Derek told me to be short, and obviously my father was a restoration specialist and restored most of Pensacola, but he also restored souls as a preacher, so I understand church. And you can't raise money if you go long, you go wrong. So this switch you can't beat, and y'all know I'm getting ready to file for re-election, so I gotta raise some money. Derek said that he just gonna take Democrat money. I take everybody money. Write the check. I mean, if you got any checks, I'll take the check. Democrats, Republicans, Independents. I mean, I'm Charlie Crist. As long as you write the check, I'm there. But for a few moments, let me just say simply, Diane, come fired up. Ready to go. We're fired up. I mean, we can go all the way back. And so if we fail to recognize history as our governor has done, then we are doomed to repeat it. And so when I talk about history, we talk about what Barack Obama did as he fired up Democrats across the country. And let's remember those how we go back to where we were. Because yes, we can. Somebody forgot, but I know we can. And yes, we can if we only believe. And so, I certainly recognize that some people don't want to recognize history and the great contributions, but there are many people. When I think about Georgia Blackman in this house, Mr. Gully, thank you for blaming a true fighter for Democrats. Yes. I mean, she fought and she kept believing, Jeff. And and so I often say this when I have speeches, and our Black Caucus, Fred Gann, our Women Caucus, Dan Cromwell, LBGQ, Jeff Nall, and all of you for being here. I think that what really happens to us, quite frankly, is people love to separate us. They want to get the progressive Democrats, the liberal Democrats, the moderate crats, the Dixiecrats, the conservative crats, the LBGQ crats, the black crats, the Hispanic crats. What we all forget, man, is that we're all Democrats. We're all Democrats. Tonight, as we take Florida back, I mean, I just tell you what, we ain't never relinquished Florida. They just won a few rounds, but they ain't won the battle. They ain't never won the fight. They just won a few rounds, but we're going to win the battle. If we work and fight not, we're going to win the battle. And so I think we have this great opportunity under the great leadership of Nikki Fried. Nikki, thank you for being here. Lil, we got a chance to do what's right. We got a chance to take it back, not for us, as Georgia Blackman said, but for the next generation. Our children. If you are in this room, or if you're knocking on doors, if you're making, Cassandra, if you're making calls, I mean, Henry didn't make calls. He made calls and fight for children that are still playing football in the Soul Bowl. He made calls for kids that are still fighting. And so, Sam, if we're sitting here today, Cindy, worried about us, then we're doing it for the wrong reason. We're fighting for the next generation. We're taking... Amen. That's a clap. As I go to my seat, we got Derek. Thank you for your leadership. As I go to my seat, you didn't come to hear me. I mean, I'm not a superstar, not a celebrity like Nikki. As Nikki travels this state, we have to connect. we can't say that those are Broward County and West Palm Democrats and we're West Florida Democrats. We're all Democrats. We have the same common core values of believing in a man that goes to work should be paid. Meaning that a woman should have the opportunity to choose what she does with her body. That every child should go to school and have the opportunity to get a decent education and get the elevator out of poverty. I mean, oftentimes we say, oh, we're opening up the window of opportunities and the doors of opportunity, but we forget to get a child a ladder or an elevator to get to the window. So he just looks down and never gets to the window. Grassroots Democrats, we give every child, every citizen an opportunity to live the American dream. So I'm on board with Take Florida Back, Nikki, but I ain't never relinquished my position as being a proud Democrat. Again, God bless you. Thank you for being here. And it's an awesome opportunity. I am proud to be a Democrat in Escambia County.
Thank you, Commissioner May. We appreciate that. Now, at this time, I want to make sure that everybody remembers the face that I'm about to bring up next, because this is the person that we are going to see as we move forward to unseat Matt Gates.
The microphone. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Because I speak really loud. Thank you for coming tonight. And thank you for making me follow Mr. Pensacola.
We love Pensacola.
His family is in the museum. I can't follow with that. But thank you, women, for everything you do.
Yes.
Also want to thank Chairman Reed for being here.
Yes.
So the reason I love Chairman Freed, Chairwoman, excuse me, Chairperson Freed, is because she ran the agriculture department. I am a gun violence prevention activist. She, as the only statewide Democrat, was our only hope for making sure that guns did not end up in the hands that they should not be in. So, Commissioner Freed, thank you. Gabe Almont. I am the person that's going to unseat Matt Gaetz. And let me tell you what, I cannot stress enough what the 2024 election is about.
Yes.
I mean, do you feel it?
Yes.
Do you feel the hate that's surrounding all of us? Do you feel the need to keep up with the news every day because you're so afraid about what rights are going to be taken away from you next? So that's what we have to correct. That's what we have to take out of our daily lives. Look, I know life is too short to waste one day with hate in your heart and disdain for your neighbor because they are a member of a different party. That's not what we're about. We are Democrats. We have had our rights taken away. We've had our voting rights taken away, our reproductive rights taken away. We have had our LGBTQ rights taken away. And it's time we take back Florida. Now I know it feels awful, but it's doable. We can do it. I see all the good Democrats in here that are at everything, that do everything, that knock on the doors, that hand out the literature, that have the petition signed. I see you. I appreciate you. And we need for you to bring 5 more people.
Right.
Because y'all, and if you've noticed, and I've noticed throughout my run so far this 3 months, that the national media is convinced. They're convinced that there are no Democrats here. That there's no blue wave going to happen. Matt Gaetz is a shoo-in. I don't believe that.
Amen.
I don't believe that. I believe we can do it.
Yes.
I believe the Florida Democratic Party is to make sure that we get people registered to vote, that we get people to sign those mail-in ballots, that we get their turnout, that these poor Democrats have been out knocking on doors for. Don't be the Democrat that sits at home and goes, I'm sad, we're never going to win, because we are going to win, because I'm going to shake every hand in this district. Believe you me. So the last 3 weeks I've been spending most of my time with Republicans. Also, one day does not go by that a Republican does not call me and tell me I'm a Republican, a lifelong Republican, never voted Democrat. How can I help your campaign? And let me tell you, it's not because I seem to be not a Democrat. I was born Democrat. My father was a Republican, my mother was a Democrat. I think the Democratic genes were stronger. But what I'm saying is, it's because they're sick of what they have now.
Exactly.
It is because our current representation is about him, not you.
Yeah. You're right about it.
I'm about you. I don't want to be on TV. I don't like to put on makeup. But I do want to work for you. I want to make sure that our homeless population, our homeless military, our homeless vets are not living on the street. We got to do something about insurance. We got to do something about affordable health care. I want to give you something to vote for and not something to vote against, but I'll take all of those Republican votes that they're voting against, every one of them. We have to get the vote out. If we don't show up, I'm going home with you. So let's do this. I know we can do this.
Yeah, we can.
Thank you.
All are going to make sure that we're out. We're going to bring 5 friends, and those friends are going to bring 5 friends to the polls, because this is crucial. Now, for the moment you all have been waiting for, I'm going to take just a couple seconds here to talk about this woman, right?
All right.
This woman I've known since 1997, when I stepped foot into on the 3rd floor of the James Wayne Rights Union at the University of Florida as a student government senator. And I remember thinking, yes, go Gators. And I remember thinking, all I saw were a bunch of blazers and jackets and suits, and I'm like, these people take this stuff way too seriously. But, here it is. So, she was a phenomenal leader at the University of Florida. You also know her as our former Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services, the only statewide elected Democrat during that time. We wanted to see her in the office of the governor's office, right?
Yeah.
But God had other plans. So with that, I am ecstatic that she is now leading the Florida Democratic Party, and she's going to bring us and elevate us to the position that we need to be, and that's on top here in the state of Florida. It is my honor, my pleasure, and my privilege to welcome to the floor my friend and our Florida Democratic Party Chair Nikki.
Thank you so much, Derek and Gay and Lumen. Did you step out? Did you step out? Oh, there you are. Did you leave before I spoke? And it truly is so great to be back here in Escambia County and Pensacola. For those who may not know my history here in this great city, my ex-boyfriend actually was a Navy JAG stationed here, and his father grew up here, his grandparents still live here. I've been asked, is that Italian restaurant that's still there across from McGuire's? They used to go there like once a week, so. I have done the McGuire's Run, which is fantastic. They get the beer at the end. It's great. But really, it's an honor to be back here. And let me tell you why we are here. Because we are not going to leave any man and woman unattended to. We are not leaving anybody behind. And that means that we are going to compete in all 67 counties. We are going to make sure that the Democratic voice and what we stand for is elevated all throughout this state. And what you all have done here in the Panhandle is remarkable. I know you call it the blue trip. That you are moving the state forward, because the work that you do here in making sure that we are winning in the margins is how the rest of the state makes sure that they are performing and overperforming and sometimes underperforming. But that's why we're here. Because we know that when we take this message to every part of this state, we are right. We are always right.
That's right.
We are always right. But why it is important now in this moment? I'm going to tell you all things, and I too don't need the microphone. November 2022 is never, ever, ever going to happen again here in our state. Because when we lose elections, it's the everyday people of the state that lose. You know, I lost my primary, but I'm still standing. And I'm still here fighting for the people in our state because they expect and they demand that of us.
That's right.
And I can tell you this wholeheartedly. Ron DeSantis did not win by 19 points. We lost by 19 points. That is on us. On us. A million less Democrats showed up in November of 22. If a million less Democrats showed up, can you imagine how many NPA left-leaning people did not show up too? That's how we got to these numbers. But here we are. You know, I came in February 25th, 2023, and I'm going to tell you all things that you probably are not amazed by. There was nothing here. There was no voter registration. There was no structure. There was no party apparatus. There was no volunteers. And let me tell you that the heart and soul of this party is our volunteers. That every day, put in the work, to do the door knocking, to do the letter writing campaigns, to make the phone calls, to do the text messages. And when the party itself does not firmly believe that it is valued and the time that you are putting in away from your families, away from holidays, away from birthdays, and you are not respected, you all don't show up to do the work on the ground. And the reality is that since 2018, Democrats haven't done the work on the ground. We shut down after we lost Andrew in 2018 and Senator Nelson. 2020 was the pandemic. And to jumpstart the party between, the primary and November is impossible. So we have to go back to the basics. The commitments that I have made to this party is, one, we are bringing voter registration back inside the party. It has to happen. Because we have seen spikes in voter registration. But it's for the NPAs. It is for the third parties, because when you have, and there are some fantastic groups that have done the door knocking and the voter registration. But if they're not able to have the one-on-one conversations of why it is important to become a Democrat and to talk about our issues and who we are as people. So we got to go back to those basics, doing the voter registration, making sure that we're building back this party apparatus. Last 2 Sundays ago at State Convention, we had 223 of our state caucuses and committees validated, which equals to 10,000 members. 10,000 Democrats across the entire state that have been part of a club or a caucus or a DEC. That's an army. That is an army on the ground every single day. And I know where we are. I have no illusions about where I am standing here today. Yes, in front of Lumen's family. But it's a great day, and I will stand with you and next to you and in front of you and behind you any day of the week. Because you put in the work in the constituency services is why this community is so beloved to you, because of the work that they see you doing here in this community. That is essential. And so when we reinvigorate the party apparatus and we get our volunteers back on the ground, we're doing the work, we win every day of the week. And so we started this Take Back Florida tour in August, and we hit 16 counties. We started in Volusia. We had around 100 people that showed up in Volusia. And then we went to Clay. And we went to, Clay, not Duval, Clay, okay? We went to Lee, we went to Collier, we went to Gilchrist, we went to St. Lucie, we went everywhere where we have not been going. Because if we're gonna build back the state, and if you see the sign, Take Back Florida, it doesn't say Flip Florida Blue. Because if we're gonna take back the state, it has to be the state for all of us. That means that we got to be talking to our independent friends and to those Republican people that we haven't spoken to since 2016. Because there's a lot of us that haven't spoken to our neighbors and to the people that we used to, our families. My dad's a diehard Republican too. I have not talked to him about politics since I was 17. But we have to go back and have those conversations, because I can guarantee you that the things that are on most Floridians' minds are the same thing that's on all of our minds. We want to make sure that our kids are safe at school and they come home. We want to make sure that you can go to a Dollar General and not be shot up inside a Dollar General. You want to make sure that your kids feel safe in the school districts. You want to make sure that you can afford your property insurance.
Yes.
If you can buy property insurance.
Yes.
We are at 9% inflation in the state of Florida. 9%. That's 3 times higher than the national average. That is because of Republican legislation. That is because Ron DeSantis has refused to bring down the financial resources for the infrastructure bill and the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS money. All of that money has stayed in Washington, D.C. And we can add that's Rick Scott too. We would have had a bullet train by now, which would have put more resources and more movement into our state. But again, they felt that that was socialist money. You know. But those are types of things that we've got to make sure we are always talking about. And every Floridian is having the same conversation. They're seeing books being banned. And I know the hall that I am in right now. The history of this community sits in the pictures and the stories. The history that makes Pensacola what it is. And not only what Pensacola is, but the history of our state and what has been developed and who has created the history of this state and this nation. And so I know that we are right on these issues. What the Republicans have done, and I firmly believe this, our state has always been libertarian in nature. If you want to come up here and live in Pensacola, you found your people. You went to the McGuire's run, you went in and lived on Gulf Breeze, maybe you went to Perrodino, like you found your people. Or if you wanted to go into, to a Pride Parade on Duval Street in Key West, or if you wanted to go to the Daytona 500, or you wanted to throw beads at Gasparilla, you found your people and you got left alone. You found your community. And what the Republicans have done is they have taken these conservative principles and they have forced it on all of us. That is not conservatism. Conservatism used to be, because this is what my dad taught me, less government, less taxes, less spending, home rule, and free market. That is not what they stand for at all tonight. They all stand for it is my way or the highway, and if you don't like it, I'm still going to force it on you. And if you don't like this book, one parent can take it off the shelves. One parent. If you don't like this state, people are telling you to move. I'm sorry. My parents were born and raised in Miami. I love this state. You all love this state, which is why we are going to take it back. And you all are going to help us get there, because that is what it means, all of us. And why this room is even more important, because you are the ones who are doing the work. You are the ones who every single day when Derek or your other county leadership, and Lumen asks for more volunteers for the campaign, you are the ones who sign up, who do the door knocking, who do the work on the ground. I see you. I see the work that you are doing every single day. So one of the things that we are doing is, listen to Derek, you all need to get onto the reach out. Our goal was, I promise you, this is how we're building back the power in our state, because it has to go back to community organizing. We've got to go back to the Obama model, where we're talking and having those barbecues on our street corners, that we're having potluck dinners at our homes on Sunday nights, that we're having the conversations that have been so hard to have, and everybody has gone into their corners. Because right now our state consists of almost 1/3 of independents. If we are not talking the real talk, and if we're not having those opportunities to reach across the aisle, we'll never win. We've got to make sure that we are talking about the issues that are important to people's minds. Let's talk about Matt Gaetz for a second.
We have to.
We haven't. Because while this community knows more than any part of our state the amount of influence of our military, the amount of veterans that live here, the bases, and in a time when we are potentially at a war, 2 of our largest allies are in the middle of a battle. What does Matt do? He shuts down our country.
That's right.
I mean, incredible that one person has that much power, okay? But instead of focusing on how do I make sure that the vets that live in my district, the people that every single day fight for him to have the power to say whatever the hell is on his mind, those people are going to be hurt when we have a shutdown potentially in 5 days, because they're more concerned about the TV cameras, they're more concerned about the clicks on their Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it, and they're not caring about you. And that is going to be on us to make sure that we are going to every part of this community. And Gay is right. The amount of Republicans that I personally talk to on an everyday basis, every day, including when I was commissioner, when I would walk onto the floor, how many Republicans turned to me into my ear and said, "Thank you, keep going." That is how they feel. They just need to know that we have life, and that we have a heartbeat, and that we are going to work with them, even though they don't want to always work with us. But we know what it takes. And let me also say this, when I came into this party, there was a lot of despair. There was a lot of depression. There was a lot of people who just gave up. And so when I came in and said we needed more energy, we needed life again, the first thing we did is we changed the logo. And it sounds so simple, and it sounds so small in the grand scheme of things. But if you notice, it's red, white, and blue. If you notice, it looks like the flag. Because one thing that we are not doing is we're not conceding the flag to them. They don't own the flag. They don't own the word patriotism. They don't own the word freedom. That is all of ours. And if we aren't ready to put our American flags back on our homes, and aren't ready to fight for democracy, and aren't ready to fight for freedom, then what are we doing here? This is all of ours, and it is time for us to take it back. Because again, we take these things back, it is not for Democrats. It is for the people of this state. And let me also say something else. You know who else is coming? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are coming. Opportunity to speak to the Vice President a couple of weeks ago on her 5th visit to Florida this year. 5 this year. And you know what she said to me? Nikki, I see you. I see what the Democratic Party is doing today, and we are not going to leave you behind. I will be here whenever you need me into the state of Florida for 24. You know who else has come since? The First Lady, the Second Gentleman. We've had multiple visits from members of the administration, because they understand that we are ground zero for MAGA extremism. And they know that Florida Democrats every day are the ones who are fighting back against this extremism. And so they want to be in the fight with us. But they wouldn't have been in this fight if we didn't get our act right. That we didn't win Jacksonville. We didn't win got a ballot petition. And I'm gonna raise your hands one way. Who has signed the ballot petition?
Which one?
For abortion.
Oh, yeah.
If you have not, #1 priority by the end of this month. If you've got family members, if you've got grandkids or kids that are coming home for the holidays, print them out. Make sure they're at your Thanksgiving dinners. Because that generation is key to getting the ballot initiative. But since May, granted I told them to start working last year, but since May, within 4 months to 5 months, they have gotten close to 1 million signatures. That is energy. The entire nation knows that Florida is back on the map. We had last week, both Julie Chavez Rodriguez, who is the chair of Biden Victory, was here in Florida. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of last week. We had J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, down here on Tuesday. We had Jamie Harrison, the chair of the DNC, here in Florida, Wednesday and Thursday. Why? Because they are part of us building back the state. They are invested here. Jamie could have been anywhere else in the entire country after we won Kentucky. Kentucky. We flipped Virginia. Majority of both of those chambers, which we know his #1 priority was going to limit abortion rights.
Yes.
And of course, we had a huge win in Ohio. So while all eyes have been on Virginia, Kentucky, a little bit of Mississippi, we were closer, and on Ohio, all eyes are now flipping to Florida. And so they could have been anywhere else on Wednesday. You know where they were? They were here. They were here meeting with different ones of our constituents in South Florida, talking about their investments in Florida, talking about how Rick Scott is the #1 priority of Chuck Schumer. 1 priority, okay? And let me also tell you this about Rick Scott. He's always won his elections by less than 1%. Wow. Less than 1% 3 times. And you know what he's also never run? During a presidential year. Okay? Where turnout is always going to be higher. And you know what else Rick Scott is? The most unliked senator in all of the United States. Laser focused, especially after Joe Manchin has decided to not run for re-election. Not that he's really been with us anyhow, but so that becomes a dire emergency that we can continue to hold on to the U.S. Senate. And the equation, the maps are not good for us across the country. So resources and commitment of Chuck Schumer and the entire Senate community, Democrat, are going to be here. We also know this too. We have to take back the House. Yes. Like there is no question about it. And so the national congressional crews are coming onto Florida because we have massive opportunities to flip seats here, to take them back, especially if there's a redrawn up in the Panhandle to the Jacksonville seat. That is resources, again, that are coming here into the state. This is then only possible because of the work that we're doing. None of this was possible in 22. And it would have not been possible if you weren't filling this room on a random, today's Monday, right? It's a random Monday night. But we're putting in the work, and they see it, and they're committed to being here. And so that's why we need you all. To be committing yourself to the electeds here, to making sure that you're working with the DEC, helping on voter registration. I'm going to ask another question. How many of you have gotten back on the vote by mail ballots list? Okay. Not as many. That is your #2 priority today. Because it is so important that they wiped out the rolls. Okay? They wouldn't have done that if it didn't matter.
Yes.
Okay? We have a 3-to-1 advantage on the vote by mail. 3-to-1. And why is that important? Because the amount of resources that we have in comparison to the Republicans. That if we are able to get our people communicated, turn in their ballots early, then there's a less amount of money that has to be at the very end to turn out the votes. Let me tell you who's not focusing on getting people back on the vote by mail. The Republicans. Okay? They're not paying attention to it, they're not focusing on it. And yes, that is a heavy lift, but we got to get used to it until we gain power back in the legislature, because this happens every 2 years now. So as long as we start building the infrastructure inside of the party of how to get people back on the rolls, it is essential, it is important. If you are not back on there, it is a very quick, either you can do it here, I'm sure you've got forms here, if not, Jill will find forms. But you can also go on to Supervisor Elections website. We are asking our electeds to lean in. There is no reason why our electeds who have to do holiday cards and already have constituency communication to put it on their communication as they're getting out stuff to the electeds. It is important that we get everybody back on the vote by mails. And then of course, we have to make sure the ballot petitions are signed and that we are ready to get them on the ballot for 24. We are so close, and especially here in the Panhandle, it is even more important that we get the signatures, because the way the Republicans have gerrymandered even this process, that you need a certain percentage per congressional seat. They all can't come from the blue counties. They've got to make sure that they are separated out by a certain percentage per the congressional districts. So which is why it is important to make sure in the Congressional District 1 that we get the signatures that are necessary to put it onto the ballot. So this is all of our job, because when we build back this infrastructure, when we do the voter registration, we do the vote by mail, we get the ballot petitions, we're supporting incredible candidates, and we're recruiting candidates, that is how we win. And do the work that is necessary on the ground and how we build it back. And I always end with this. You know, people always come to me and say, is this possible? My God, we just hit the iceberg. Granted, people kept saying, why are you jumping onto the Titanic after you hit the iceberg? I think you and I have had this conversation, Sam. and I said, one, there was lifeboats. But eventually, we had to get people back to safety. And that is, so we are at a pivotal point. So people have asked me, you know, is this possible? And I have laid out a very strategic map and a plan. That the plan for 24 is this. We're going to reduce the voter registration gaps by 35%. That is manageable. That is absolutely manageable. We have broken it down on per county, per area, and it is a manageable, obtainable goals. 2 is to make sure that we're getting ourselves out of the super minority in the House.
Yes.
Flipping at least 6 to 7 seats.
Yes.
All very doable. All of the seats that we had targeted are Biden plus 3, 5, 7 seats that we should have never, ever, ever lost in 22. Okay, those are ours, and we're going to take them back.
Yes.
3, we got to protect our incumbents. That is everything from up here to all the way down to Miami-Dade and re-electing Daniela Levine Cava as the Miami-Dade mayor there. Priorities. 2, 4, 5. Getting back, making sure that the ballot petitions are on and that we win those win on protecting reproductive health care in 24.
Yes.
Those are doable goals. But that's the floor. The ceiling, that's on us. How many candidates are we going to recruit? Because we know that that is essential, especially in these areas. You know, I had a leader in our party say, we don't have the resources to handle everything. Just focus on winnable seats. I said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to go to Escambia County and tell you all, we're not going to worry about your House and your senators and your city and county commissioners. We're not going to worry about that. We're not going to provide resources for gay. You're on your own. What do you all do next? You all go home and don't come back out. The morale of our DECs, on our volunteers, to get behind candidates and to believe in a plan is essential to turning out votes and to start changing the conversation in the communities. Because if you were out there knocking on doors, having those conversations, you're able to pull those people who have either A, haven't voted in a couple election cycles, have voted Republican for God only knows why, and 3, registering them to vote because it's important. If you don't have those candidates, then the apparatus falls apart. And so we need to make sure that we are recruiting candidates all the way from school board, you have a congressional candidate, and everything in between. So if you know people who are on the verge of wanting to run for office, tell them to call me. Everybody in here has my phone number. Not everybody, but a lot of people in this room have my phone number. Share it. Let me have that conversation. Because it is essential that we get good candidates that are running and carrying the Democratic message. Okay? So, why I say everything is possible, and the ceiling is on us. Recruiting of candidates. How many phone calls are you going to make? How many doors are you going to knock? How many of our text messages are you going to put out there? Because the amount of work that we as the volunteer base puts into the party is determinant of how successful we are. And we saw what happens when we all stay home in November. Record losses. The worst loss Florida Democrats have ever experienced in our state. Ever. We lost Dade County. We lost Palm Beach. We lost Hillsborough County. We lost Osceola. Like our blue stronghold counties flipped. So that's part of the plan, is to make sure that they flip back. But that's going to take every single one of us to say, what am I going to do after I leave this meeting tonight? What is my objective? That's to volunteer, recruit candidates, and be truly committed, because this is our state. And I refuse to let Ron DeSantis and his cronies define who we are and define what matters. Because I did make 3 promises to this party when I took the gavel. One is that we're going to be unified. The internal fighting of this party is over. Do we sometimes, as women said, like, doesn't matter if you're a Dixiecrat or a liberal-crat, we're all Democrats. And it's okay. Like, family dinners don't always have to be pleasant, but we're still family. And it's about coming together and making sure. The second promise that I made was to make sure that we were never having a November 2022. And the third promise, which gets me even more giddy, is that Ron DeSantis will never be president of the United States. If the election was held today, he would lose his re-election. Because he can't do what he's done to this state and pull these legislators, who some of them are not bad people, and pull them into such an atrocious direction and think that there's no repercussions. So what I said on a news interview this weekend, there's going to be a day of reckoning.
Yes.
And it is going to be delivered by the hands of the Florida Democrats. I will be happy to take whatever questions that you may have, suggestions, ideas, but just wanted to give you all the opportunity that if there's anything that's on your mind, I am here. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Nikki, I was wondering about the Senate race with Rich Scott. Do we have enough candidates? Do we have good candidates right now?
Yes.
That would be good for that race?
Yes. So first off, the Democratic Party, I'm going to preface this, Democratic Party does not endorse. So let's start there. Okay. We do have a candidate who seems to be getting consolidated around, which is Debbie Mercaselle-Powell. There is another candidate who is announcing officially this week as well, Stanley Campbell, also, who's down also in the South Florida area. Both of them are fantastic candidates. Debbie has the support of Chuck Schumer and national Democrats, and so that helps to get the money into our state when we've got such commitment from our national supporters and our national leaders, because at the end of the day, and they both And Debbie, under her leadership as a past member of Congress, is getting the support across the country because, again, Rick Scott is a number one priority. And so, yes.
Thank you.
I read something today about the Republicans going to the courts to try and stop the reproductive rights. Can you comment
Yes,
on that?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So our, I don't know what we're going to call her these days, our Attorney General has felt that she no longer understands her job as Attorney General, and that she believes that she is the Attorney General of Ron DeSantis and not of you all. Even worse than Pam Bondi, which is even hard to say. Very hard to say. But so Ashley has taken upon herself to believe that she has an obligation to kick all citizens' initiatives off ballots. And so she has tried to do this now with both the legalization of cannabis. That oral arguments happened this week, in which the Supreme Court basically turned to her attorneys and called them out on this is a ridiculous argument. Because the Supreme Court is supposed to look at two things when they're deciding on a ballot initiative. They're supposed to look to make sure that it's single subject, and that the same thing if you're passing a bill in the legislature, single subject, and not confusing language to the electorate. And so what she has done on the cannabis amendment is, one, she said it is confusing. The electorate will think that it's legal across the country.
No way.
When the language specifically says this does not change federal law, which is what the Supreme Court was like, did you read the whole language here? And then she did a second brief where she attacked the cannabis industry who is funding the amendment. And so they have basically, again, that's for the campaign once it's on the ballot. That is not something for the Supreme Court to review. So she is doing the same thing with the abortion amendment. She will be challenging, and let me also preface this, she doesn't have to say a word. There is no obligation for the Attorney General to engage in conversation or to do anything when it comes to citizens' initiatives. She, though, has taken upon herself that this is what she wants to do. So she has, in fact, going to try to get the abortion off of the ballot. But I would have probably said, the oral arguments on Wednesday, if you asked me this question on Tuesday, I would have probably said how much it breaks my heart as an attorney to say this out loud. I do not have faith in our Supreme Court, that they will rule on the side of the law and not be activist Supreme Court justices. And I would have been very concerned that this Supreme Court would have kicked both ballot initiatives off.
Yeah.
But because the oral arguments that I saw from the Supreme Court on Wednesday and the types of questioning that they had to her attorneys makes me believe that they are going to allow the cannabis legalization onto the ballot. And if they're allowing that one on the ballot, that is more complicated and much larger verbiage on the ballot than the abortion amendment language, I think is much tighter. And I do think that they will have a harder time. Her arguments are, people don't know what the word viability means or the health of the mother. That's her arguments, and it's so vague that people won't know what viability means. So I think the Supreme Court's going to say the same thing. What do you mean they don't know what the word viability means? Like, are you able to live outside the womb? Like, that's not a complicated question. So she is challenging it, but I do believe that the Supreme Court's going to put it on the ballot. Thank you. You've got a lot of quick
I saw Linda Fussell, and then we'll go to Norm after that. You don't have any? Okay, Norm, and then Francine, and then Fred.
See, I get in trouble if he's just.
I guess expounding on the abortion initiative there, is there a plan B? If the courts do take it, do say we can't put it on the ballot there, and we know from, Ohio last week, for instance, there, that this is the driver, for people to go out and vote there. We've got to get that initiative on the ballot. Otherwise, we're dead in the water here.
We're not dead in the water.
Well, it's gonna make it harder for us to get the Democrats and the independents out there, voting there. So that's my first question. My second question is, I think a few years back or whatever, we heard that the Florida Democratic Party was in the red financially. Where do we stand now?
Okay. I'll answer the second part first. We're not in the red. Since I became chair, I've raised close to $3.5 million for the party. Granted, we've spent most of it, but that's the job. Is sitting in a bank account. Sitting in a bank account doesn't do any good. So we have spent it, and for the right reasons and the right protocol. So we are not in any stretch of imagination in financial problems. In fact, our donors are coming back to the table. Both our statewide donors as well as our national donors. We have reinstituted our board of trustees, so if anybody in this room wants to be a part of it, yes, you are. And it's her obligation to raise $25,000 to be on the board.
So may I take the liberty to let everyone know January 27th we're having a fundraiser, the first ever Panhandle Gala, and I need you all there helping us out with that. So, yes.
Things like that are happening.
Yes.
Where you've got donors who haven't been back to the table or have not had any faith in the party apparatus. And so we've got close to 40 of our board of trustees back, all with $25,000 plus commitments into the party apparatus. We are talking to our national donors and our national supporters because we're presenting them with plans. It's not like, can you just give us money? It's, here is the plan. This is what we want to do on the youth engagement piece of this puzzle. We have got a very strategic plan of what we want to do with the youth. And so then we can go and pitch the donors, this is what we want you to fund. We are doing voter registration, this is how much it's going to cost. And we're finding those donors are back at the table and want to invest in Florida. In fact, Jamie Harrison committed to me on Wednesday night that we're going to be having a huge national Zoom, bringing national donors from across the entire country that have been involved with either Democratic politics or abortion issues or attacking Rick Scott issues. And Jamie Harrison, the chair of the DNC, is going to be making a pitch to all the national donors saying, we are here, you need to be with us. And so that will continue to open up the floodgates on money. And your first part is going to be more complicated, but that's why we're doing the work now. Because if in fact the Supreme Court comes back and says no go on either or both, that is going to be on us to make sure that we are communicating to the electorate. Because let me tell you, since May, as I said earlier, to get 1 million signatures in a really short period of time, and I'll just in comparison, the cannabis amendment started in November of last year, right after the election, because they've changed the way that you can collect ballots. Used to be that you can carry over to the next election cycle. They've changed that, so you have to start over. Right, so they had to start all over again. And one of the industry members has put in $39 million. They are just at a little bit over 1 million signatures. The abortion started in May, had raised $11 million, probably 12 at this point, and we're almost at 1 million. So the energy behind at least the abortion amendment is legitimate energy on the ground. So if they get kicked off, that creates an additional army of 1 million people who are going to be angry. Angry and say, you know how you fix this? Get all these people out of office. And so that is how we turn it into an election candidate movement if we can't have the policy movement.
So plan B will be then to rewrite the verbiage, I guess, so that we...
I mean, the messaging will change, obviously. You know, it's not come out to protect your reproductive health care by voting for this amendment. It's come out and protect your reproductive health care by kicking all these people out of office. So the message changes, I think.
Francie.
Hi, Nikki. Well, I just want to say I am running against Michelle Salzman for the third time. Yeah, I know she has. And this is what I want to say. This is not Michelle Salzman first time talking about black and brown people. My wonderful friend that I love so much, Samantha, she talked about the Wedgwood area very bad. We're going through an environmental issue. People are dying left and right. Yep. She said that they're not her people, they're not her voter base, they're not.
Yeah, we've talked about this, about the sewer, right?
Yeah. And she said she's not helping them. She's not helping them. And she knows it's 95% black people, probably 98%. Yep. She said she's not helping them. She's not doing anything. Before she did that, she even talked about her own co-worker, Barnaby. I don't know if you remember that.
How can you remember?
Yeah. She said that he was a black token. That was their black token
That's right.
when we was talking about the HB1 bill.
That's right.
So this is what she do. She talks about different races, and then when she get called out, she want to play the victim. And then she wants to say, I didn't know what we were even talking about. Okay, either you're incompetent and you shouldn't be there anyway if you don't know what they're talking about, or you just an outright racist and we don't need you in that seat.
That's right.
Because when you are a representative, you represent everybody, not just who you want to represent.
That's right.
So I'm asking everybody in here, please help me. We have got to get this lady out of there. I don't think we have nobody for Alex Andrade, but he just
Not
works.
yet, but certainly if you got ideas. Stand up. Okay. Because he's worse than her.
Oh, yes, he is. Okay. But what I do want to ask is, we are asking, I have asked for her immediate resignation. Are we ever going to stand and say, hey, we want her out of here? I know Samantha did it 3 years ago. She's ready to do it again with me today. So,
Yeah, and we put out a pretty strong statement last week.
Okay.
Condemning her conversation as well. This conflict and this war is dividing
Yes.
a lot of hearts right now.
Yes, it is.
And this is a time when we have to keep talking to each other
Yes.
and show compassion. And there is family members that are losing family members overseas, and we need to be having leaders who are not going to inflame and to understand their responsibility. It is okay to be steadfast in one view on this issue over the other. Like, that's okay. But the second you stop talking and respecting the other side of the conversation, including that I reached out to Angie Nixon the next morning and said, look, we are going to vehemently disagree on this issue, but I'm here to talk and I'm here to listen. And that's what we need more leaders to do, is to make sure that we are extending that grace. And what she did was not reflective of what a representative, somebody who is asked to serve. I mean, when I firmly believe this, when you are a candidate or an elected, and somebody goes into the ballot box, they are giving you their proxy. And you have got to take that to heart, that everything that you say, everything that you do, has got to be under the notion you shouldn't be doing it for yourself, it's for the people you represent. And I say this even in regards to Ron DeSantis. If anybody watched my outgoing speech, which I don't think any of you did, and that's totally okay. But what I said was, you have an opportunity that you are walking into a second term with a 19-point advantage, a supermajority in both chambers. No statewide Democrats since Reconstruction have we had that situation. What are you going to do with this moment? Are you going to represent the full 22 million people in this state? Or are you only going to represent the 4.6? Only 4.6 out of 22 million people voted for him. That means 17 million people did not. Okay? And so what are you going to do? Are you going to represent all 22 million, or are you going to only represent the 4.6? Because that's not what public service means.
That's right.
And unfortunately, we know which path he took. And I said in my speech, history is going to judge you by this moment. Yes. And my God, has history judged him. Thank God. So when it comes to Solomon, every elected has to have that same internal moral compass that you may have agreed, and I have very strong opinions about this. But if you don't take a step back and recognize that not everybody agrees with you, and you have to create space for conversation. And when an elected official goes so hard and so disrespectful and so disgusting on comments, you shut out 60%, 70% of the people you're supposed to represent, and it shows that you are not a good public servant, and you need to go. And if you are the answer, my God, bring it.
So I'm going to take in the order that I saw them. Jermaine first and then Pam. Go ahead.
How you doing, Madam Chair? I just moved back here from Duval County last week. I'm a mental health professional here. I have a question for you, a little wordy. But back in 2011, I worked with Desmond Meade and the FRRC to get Amendment 4 on the ballot, and I worked that until we passed it.
Yes.
I watched in Duval County where Duval went after the forgotten, the unwanted, and that's what turned Duval blue.
Yes.
It wasn't the people that was already voting. It was the ones that, everybody that had a hand in getting behind Desmond and getting these individuals their rights back. Now that's a challenge in Pensacola because the young black male, how they feel is that there's no difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. And you know, no matter what the truth is, you cannot dismiss how they feel. And they have, some of them have the right to feel like that. To be honest, I'm one of them. I'm here listening to you to see if I came in here on my mind, should I flip independent or stay Democrat? What do you say to those individuals?
I say to those individuals, let's look, first of all, thank you for bringing that up, because it's real. It is a legitimate, a real conversation, and I go back to things that I have said historically. The Democratic Party makes a lot of promises, and especially into our black community, that the black community, especially our black women, have been the heart and soul and most consistent voters in the Democratic Party. And white electeds, white candidates, take it for granted. And I'm the first one, I've said it in black churches, I have said it for those that were at the Black Caucus meetings over, I have consistently said this. And so until which time that Democrats understand that we can't give lip service, we need action. That you can't come to the black churches 2 months before an election and sit here and say, we're going to do all these things. Well, great, where have you been for 2 years? Where have you been coming to our communities to make sure that we are reinvesting in our black communities? It's not about criminal justice reform, and it's not about gun violence. It is about truly investing into the communities and uplifting the black voice and the black, not the vote, the voice. And to make sure that our black brothers and sisters see themselves in this party. And so what I say is, look at what we're trying to accomplish. Are we perfect? By no stretch of the imagination. No stretch of the imagination, but we're recognizing it and trying to move forward and trying to build a coalition where everybody has a seat at the table, that we're talking about the black agenda. You know, I fully understand, you're not going to the barbershop up the street and talking about the infrastructure bill. Like, that's not a conversation. But what you can say is, you know what? Those potholes that are up on the street that Lumen may not have fixed yet, but that money is coming down to this city and to this county to fix the potholes that make sure that your car doesn't get a flat tire every single time that you're trying to go to work and you're getting a flat tire. And you know what? We're also putting more people to work to fix those. And you know why that's all happening? Because of Joe Biden and the Democrats. And to go back to the basics, because we're not going into the communities and we're not listening. And we, again, talk about economic opportunities, and we talk about things up here. And until we go down to the surface level and have the conversations, the fact that I think it's an insane number of black boys who are only reading at 3rd grade level. What are we doing about that? What are we doing to make sure that our young men are actually getting the tools for success? Because if we don't do it at 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, they're going to be up in the prison system. And we can talk about criminal justice reform all we want, but we had to fix it in the front end. That's the only way that we're going to do it. And I walked into there thinking I was going to save the world and wanting to make a difference and wanting to be better than potentially my other counterparts in the public defender's office. And what I kept seeing was the same people coming into my office. It was the same people over and over again. And I got frustrated. And I said, all I'm doing here is pushing papers at the end of the day. How do I stop these people from getting into the system to begin with? And you got to talk about economic opportunities and wealth and financial management and the things that build power in our communities. And Democrats haven't always gotten that. And I think that you're getting a new generation of elected officials and new candidates that as long as we keep talking about these things, we're going to continue getting better. And the alternative is? The alternative is stopping to fund things like this. It is taking, Black stories off of library shelves. It's saying that there was some benefit to Black slavery. That we're going to make it more difficult for minorities. And let me tell you, I was in the trenches with Desmond. I campaigned on it in 2018, and I pushed and pushed and pushed to make sure that that constitutional ballot initiative was implemented correctly, which it was not. But it's a showing that when we had the opportunity, we were right there. It was the Republicans who stripped it away from us. And having to remember that given their opportunity, they don't want you to vote.
All right.
And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what policies they want to push or not push, but if they're trying to take away your fundamental right to vote and put in additional obstacles, then there is no Democrat versus Republican. It's about justice. It's about access to the ballot box. It is about creating a society where people are lifted up and not pushed down, which is what the Republicans stand for.
I'm glad I'm getting the last word here, but you get the last word. And I made my donation tonight at the door for the Florida Democratic Party, so we all need to do that. But I am a mother, a grandmother of LGBTQ family members and loved ones and many friends. I taught school for 30 years, and since 1970, when I first started under court order, when we were newly desegregated, I have seen the demise of public education being attacked since Jeb Bush and since then. And our public education system is in jeopardy because of people who are out for their personal power and profit. And that is the Republican Party. And I am concerned about what's happening to our children, our posterity, and the horrible role models they have at every level of government who are bullies. I have family members and friends who lived under Hitler in Germany. And what is happening right here in our state is the same thing that Hitler did in Nazi Germany. And it is scary what is happening worldwide with the numbers of attacks on democracies worldwide. And we can't even have our Congress get their act together to fund our military and our security. Our Supreme Court, we cannot trust to be checks and balances because they don't even have a plan to monitor their own ethics and what they're doing for their own personal power and profit and gifts. And we need to not be silenced. Your silence means you condone what's going on.
There you go.
And what is happening is fear and intimidation of the teachers who don't know what they can say and cannot say, to be supportive of our students who need to have people they trust to teach them to do critical thinking and problem solving. They are our future leaders and citizens. And when teachers cannot, they are confused on what the law even means. And we have elected officials at every level who are going along with these laws. I don't want Ron DeSantis, who passed the law that he didn't have to resign to run for president, to come back and be my governor. And what is your legal opinion about his abuse of power of taxpayer dollars to further his presidential campaign? And my last quote is by William Gladstone, a former prime minister in Great Britain, who said, "We look forward to the day when the power of love," and that means love of all human beings, human rights, civil rights for everybody globally who want life, liberty, justice. That's human nature everywhere in this world. We look forward to the day when the power of love overcomes the love of power. I personally add the word "and profit." Only to overcome the power of the love of power, to overcome the power of the love of power and profit. Only then may the world know the blessing of peace. But what is your legal opinion on Ron DeSantis' abuse of power? He passed the law that he didn't have to resign. So if he loses the presidential, which we're going to make that happen, we're still going to be stuck with him in government.
We are going to be stuck with him. So my legal opinion and my personal opinion and my political opinion are all the same. It was March of 2020 that Capitol was closed, legislative session was over, and I stood outside of my office and had a press conference talking about what had happened during that legislative session. And it was the first time that I called him a dictator. And everybody was like, oh my God, you called the governor of the state of Florida a dictator? And I said, yes, I did. I said, let me tell you all, and this is 2020. This is March of 2020. And what he has done is unfathomable. Fascism, it is authoritarian. I watched it in front of my own eyes to watch how he not only controlled power from the legislature, the cabinet, I mean, my God, I know we're in the panhandle. I would walk into a cabinet meeting and our CFO, Jimmy Petronas, would sit there would be like, hey boss, we're all independently elected, all have the same one vote on the cabinet, boss. And watch when there was controversial issues that were legal in mind, and Jimmy doesn't have one of those brains, and we would watch the debate between myself and Ron on an issue, and he would literally pull his chair back and allow Ron and I to go into a debate. And then he'd pull his chair back, and Ron would try to, I know where you are, and he would look at Jimmy and goes, wherever you are, boss. What? So he has been able, and the same thing with the Supreme Court. You know, he put his nose over the Supreme Court when he tried to appoint somebody who wasn't qualified for the seat. And the Supreme Court said, I'm sorry, I can't sit this person. This person isn't qualified for this seat. And Ron was like, yes, she is. And they're like, no, she's not. And you have to give us a new name by 5 o'clock, whatever day it was. He intentionally waited until like 7 to give the name, just to do this to the Supreme Court, okay? And the legislature allowed it to happen. Jimmy Petronas and Ashley Moody allowed it to happen. And we have seen our legislative leadership allowed it to all happen. There should have been absolutely no amendment to the resign to run law. Because here we have a governor who hasn't been here. Kamala Harris has been in Florida more than she has. Okay? And what has that done? It has taken policies, which is not Florida. 75% of Floridians did not want a 6-week abortion ban. 71% did not want permitless and trainless carry. But yet, here we are. And 70% did not want the attacks on DEI on our higher education system. And yet, here we are. And so what has to happen is that when he comes back, poor, humiliated, tail between his legs, and it's going to be glorious. But it is going to be on the Republicans to check him. We don't have the votes. So when he comes back for this legislative session, we're going to see what the Republicans do to him. If they continue to abide by whatever crazy wishes he wants, or are they actually going to stand up and fight back? And that is where we as Democrats have to be united more than ever before, because the chaos that we saw in DC is going to come to the chaos of the Capitol here in Florida. And as long as they are continuing to show that they don't care about the people, that is when we are organizing, we are knocking on doors, we're recruiting candidates, and we are going to be the ones to say this chaos is not what the people want. So my legal opinion is he has absolutely blurred the lines. I mean, the amount of changing of public records, of not allowing his travel, that is literally like Unbelievable. And not even just future travel, but behind travel. Doesn't, because there's things that are going on that we don't want to know what's happening on that state plane, who's going on that state plane, who they're traveling, where he's going. Is he going to a campaign event? Is he going to an official event? And so because they've completely, like, sunshine laws don't exist right now in Florida. Democracy does not exist in the state of Florida. You know, my dad is, like I said, die-hard Republican. And when I became chair of this party, I had to call him and be like, hey, so Dad, not only did I become chair of the Democratic Party, but I may have gotten myself arrested too. And that was a really hard conversation to have with my dad. And I said, Dad, look, you've always taught me, you are an attorney, you've always taught me that it is about democracy only works when there's a balance of power. And right now there's no democracy in Florida. So if I can put my heart and my energy and my political think tank into a position where we can regain balance, that is what is necessary. And I think those are the same conversations that we have to have with our friends that are modern, that are not crazy MAGA, but everybody else of like, if you believe in America, and you believe in the American dream of hope and opportunity, and you believe that we're supposed to be that beacon of light for not just America, but for the entire world, we've got to protect democracy. And what Ron DeSantis has done is so undemocratic, which is why I have consistently said that while Donald Trump is the greatest threat to our national security, you better believe that we would be in World War III right now if he was still president of the United States. Right? Not a question. Whether we're with Russia or Ukraine, but we're going to have been in that war. Okay? And same thing with the Middle East, he would have absolutely gotten us into the war already. There's not a single person in America that I would rather be president of the United States in this moment than Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Conversations to the rest of the nations in the world and have respect and know and those relationships and the understanding of foreign and international policy, understanding the histories of these conflicts, and be able to get us to a point where we are not in World War III right now. But Ron DeSantis is our greatest threat to democracy. And I firmly believe that. And so we have got to make sure that the rest of the nation understands that, and I'll leave you with this one story. It was early part of February this year. It was the anniversary of Roe v. Wade. And our vice president was coming to Tallahassee to celebrate Roe v. Wade and the fall of it. And I got a phone call that said, we need a location in Tallahassee. And FSU had already said no. And so they said, can you call the president of FAMU? I was like, this should be easy. This should be a very easy conversation. A graduate of another HBCU, like, this makes so sense. And they said, Nikki, we can't do that. Because they were scared of the ramifications of what would happen to FAMU. And I got a call from a reporter within that time frame. And they said, hey, I've heard this crazy story that FAMU won't host the vice president. And I said, that's correct. Why? And I said, why? And I spent 30 minutes schooling this New York Times report about what has happened here in the state of Florida. That already our HBCUs are under attack, already underfunded, already have all of this civil war that's happening in our state. This is even before he made the changes into our history books. And so when we got done, the New York Times reporter said to me, I had no idea. And I said, none of you have. I said, you all have spent the last 4 years lifting this man up as the next heir apparent to Trump with a better package, with a better version, with all these accomplishments in Florida. I said, you all have gotten the story wrong. He has come in here and he has taken over the state that there is no more democracy here, and people are scared. Our teachers are scared, our students are scared, our black communities are scared, our LGBTQ plus community is scared, now our Jewish communities are scared. And that is because we don't have leadership at the top that truly represents democracy and represents all people that live in one of, if not, the most diverse state in the nation. And we have to pride ourselves on being that type of diversity. And so My legal, my personal, and my political opinion is the same. He has absolutely blurred those lines, has overstepped, has taken away power from people, has taken away power from other branches of government, and has consolidated into supreme dictator of the state of Florida. And that is where we come into play to not only hold him accountable, but equally his enablers of the Florida legislature.
Just a little bit. We're going to ask, as we as Democrats are great stewards of our place, our environment, we're going to be good stewards to the Jordan African American History Museum. And I'm going to ask, as we stand up, we're going to do two things. As you stand up, if you could take the chairs in your row and stack them to the furthest part of the wall and just set them through, right? And then once we do that, we're going to get together and we're going to get a group photo with everybody here, and then we're going to go on our way, and we're going to take back Florida, right? Before we do that, there are sandwiches in the back. Once you depart, I know some of you are hungry. Please stop and get a sandwich and a cookie.
Hey, you need to run for office, girl. No, honey, I don't have emotional stability, but I will to the last breath in my death exercise my First Amendment